welcome to another episode of the CPGGUYS podcast. Our hosts, Sri Rajgopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPGGUYS.
Hello, folks, and welcome to this episode of the CPGGUYS podcast. I'm, of course, Sri, your co-host, and who couldn't join me today as I'm live at the NielsenIQ Consumer 360 Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, all the way in Desert Ridge in May 2024. That would be PVSB, and when he's not co-hosting this podcast, he serves as Partnership Acceleration Lead at Flywheel, a division of Omnicom that helps enterprise brands improve their SEO and SEM, growing their e-commerce businesses. Please listen to my older daughter Ria Raj's music at www.riaraj.com. That's RHEARAJ.com. And follow my younger daughter Lara Raj as a member of the Geffen Records Universal Music Group Cat's Eye. While my wife Kavita Raj has her own podcast, Lights Camera Convo on iHeartRadio and all streaming platforms. In June, all four of us in the family will actually have our own podcast. Kind of wacky. Before we get to our guests, we want to ask you to help spread the word about this community we've created called the CPGGUYS beyond sharing our podcast with your friends. If you're using Apple Podcasts or Spotify as your preferred listening platform, leave us a rating as it helps feed the algorithm that makes us more findable by CPG retail people like you looking for education and entertainment. But more importantly, your rating also tells us, do we have the right guests? Are we having the right conversations? Because you shaped the show. We're happy that the CPGGUYS is part of an impressive collection of highly rated podcasts, including our franchises, the CPGGUYS Fast Forward hosted by Brian Gildenberg, CPG Scoop with Risa and Jennifer, and the FMCG guys across the pond in Europe with Daniel, Efrain, and Christine. And I'll be there at Shop Talk Barcelona shortly. And finally, we're incredibly proud of our allyship with Next Up, whose mission is to advance the cause of women in business and to promote gender equality in the workplace. Next Up, of course, has terrific educational and networking resources available to its members, and I serve on the board of directors leading the development committee of Next Up. Links to our podcast, our sister cast, our landing page on Next Up, and the social media profiles of my daughters, Ria and Lara, my wife's podcast, may be found in the digital liner notes of this podcast. So let's get a conversation going. I'm joined today here live at the C360 conference, as I mentioned, in Phoenix, by Kenny Juskowiak, Managing Director at NIQ for Emerging Brands. He's been with NIQ since 2021, started as an SVP for customer success. Prior to his recent journey with NIQ, he was with FCM LLC and the Ovative Group for over 2 years. And prior to that, a career with Nielsen before the media company actually split. His background is robust in brand client partnerships from none other than General Mills in Minnesota.
Such a great experience.
How about that? To global leadership and client success.
Yes.
No surprise that you're here actually leading the push now for emerging brands as the captain. We here on the CPGGUYS believe that NIQ is your premier partner of choice for full retail measurement. And part of that, if you are the premier partner of choice, is the ability to also serve not just large brands, but emerging and smaller brands. And that's the nature of our conversation today. So Kenny, welcome to the CPGGUYS. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's so wonderful to be here. Long-time listener, first-time contributor. So it should be a great conversation.
Those are the best, Kenny. Ones that listen, they know exactly how this go. And I'm looking forward to the chat with you.
Yeah.
Kenny, before we get started with our Q&A segment here, can you give us a quick overview of your current role and remit as MD for Emerging Brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So as the Emerging Brands Managing Director, my focus is making sure that we have the right type of focus on emerging brands across the gamut, from our products and our technology platforms to our data, all the way through to our service and ultimately making sure that we're driving their outcomes and their growth. So anything and everything that we can do to help emerging brands succeed is exactly what we're focused on. We like to say that we're trying to democratize access to data for emerging brands. And that is the next remit of my job for the rest of this year and beyond, is to make sure that we're helping them grow as quickly and as effectively as we can.
And we're going to get into a lot of details on the how, what, where, when of supporting emerging brands and smaller brands in just a minute. Thank you for that overview, Kenny. In the digital liner notes of this episode, we'll of course include links to your LinkedIn profile, Kenny's, and the NIQ company's corporate websites for our listeners to access while we go on with our conversation. So let's start. Ready to go?
I'm ready.
So your career background, you have extensive client service experience in customer success.
Absolutely.
A couple of decades is no joke. At Nielsen itself, over 10 years in a past life.
Mm-hmm.
How did this set you up to be the leader for emerging brand success at NIQ?
Yeah, so a term I've learned since I come into the emerging brand space is big strategics. And so I had...
General Mills was a part of that?
Exactly right. So I had a lot of experience with General Mills, with SCJ, with Cargill, lots of these big strategics for about 10 years growing up. And that time was invaluable for me, not just because those companies are extremely well run. And so I learned what it was to be a really good, effective manager and how to organize a business. But also because they're so sophisticated and intelligent in their use and application of data. So I got to see the right ways the data can and should be applied to answering any and every question that you can conceive of. And they also were blessed with enough resources to invest in a broad swath of different solutions that NIQ has to offer. So not only did I see kind of our core solutions, but I also got to see the more advanced solutions come to life and get used to make better, more effective decisions. I then took a little bit of a hiatus from NIQ and I left and I joined FCM and Ovative, two very different organizations, but similar in the fact that they were small and very quickly growing. And through that experience, I learned how important it was to be agile in order to make decisions quickly, and the value of speed over perfection, and a comfort with ambiguity. And so being able to kind of combine those two experiences together has been really fruitful for me in this new role, saying, I know what really good and sophisticated looks like, but I also know that sophisticated might be a little bit too overwhelming for an organization that's trying to move quickly and nimbly. And so how do we streamline what awesome looks like down to something that's going to work really effectively for emerging brands in a space that I care deeply about? I love CPG. It's so much fun. The brands are exciting and the energy is there, and it's just so resonant with consumers. And so that proximity to consumers and the fact that I can go to my pantry every day and see the product of my work has been really, really rewarding.
Hey man, that's how I felt over 30 years. And here I am, suddenly woke up one day and said, I'm going to get into the media world. That very experience you speak to the big strategics or the very large market cap, traded companies.
Yeah.
Obviously, working with the smaller brands is a whole different ball game. So how do you approach services for smaller brands through NIQ? And then how do you bring focus to brands that don't have the scale in distribution or financial resources to partner with you in any meaningful way?
It's a great question, and it's one that we honestly struggled with for a long time. And what it took was a few years ago, NIQ making an active decision to separate itself a little bit, carve out these emerging brands into a totally different business unit, build a unique platform tailored specifically to their needs, what we call Visor, and then build all of the surrounding go-to-market resources around that. Pricing and commercial strategies, new tools and technologies, new service models, all of that stuff. So we needed to strip ourselves down to the very bottom and rebuild ourselves to orient around the needs and unique requirements that emerging brands offer to the marketplace.
That couldn't have been easy.
It wasn't. Luckily, I didn't have to do it. So I have to give a lot of thanks to Andrew Croesus, my predecessor, to Susan Dunn, who was kind of the visionary that organized that entire transaction, and then the entire team that brought that to life. Troy Triangan, who's now our chief product officer, was a really important part.
Troy's been on the show, by the way.
Yes, exactly right. He was a massive part of the launch and development of Visor from the beginning. And so, but it wasn't until we did that we really found the success that we were looking for, and the resonance that we were trying to drive with emerging brands. Certainly, product and platform weren't just enough to be successful, but it laid a really strong foundation for our ability to serve this really specific community. So we're really excited for that foundation to have been laid. Since then, we've sort of invested even further in expanding our go-to-market beyond just the product, but we want to make sure that we have the right coverage of solutions against emerging brands. So coverage is a loose term, right? When I talk about coverage, I don't just mean retail and sales coverage, though that's certainly incredibly important. It's brick and mortar plus all of the omni measurement that we know is so incredibly important, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, I'm sure. But there's also consumer coverage, right? The consumer insight, understanding giving emerging brands the fingertips for what consumers are really looking for. And then a very important but oftentimes unspoken need for coverage is around product coverage. What are the different characteristics that are emerging? What are the different attributes and benefits that products are claiming and are sort of popping up across the landscape? So much of where emerging brand activity happens is in a new, innovative, sort of niche claims type of space. And so being able to have a really clear picture of the universe of competitive products and emerging trends, even outside of retail sales, is an incredibly important part of what's going to help emerging brands be successful. So our investments in consumer, retail, and product coverage have been the things that I think have really unlocked a lot of potential for emerging brands.
Yeah, so if you're an emerging or a smaller brand, you kind of have the same needs that a large market cap company has, which is first, you need share data because that informs how you're doing overall in the marketplace. You're going to need shopper journeys because you need to know how to create your marketing mix model. And then most importantly, after all of that, you're going to want access to panel data so you can actually get the quals and make your innovation the best innovation possible, right? So the lens that I wear, or Peter and I wear, and Peter, Brian and I wear, and the CPG guys, we feel the need set is the same. So in that spirit, I want to double down a little bit on e-commerce now.
Yeah.
Amazon, of course, is the behemoth of the CPG industry on the e-commerce side, while Walmart Click and Collect is playing quick catch-up. So a brand cannot really be confident of their comprehensive share without Amazon coverage. So I know on the big strategics, you guys are very focused on e-commerce, Amazon, web scraping, and in separate conversations I had with Kim Cox on the episode last month, we actually got into the details of what y'all are doing for big brands. Yeah. How do you provide a full view coverage for the smaller brands with e-commerce in the middle of it? Because I imagine a large part of their business is actually D2C and e-commerce.
That's exactly right. I would actually say that emerging brands are the ones who benefit the most from our expansion and coverage into omni and e-com, because so many emerging brands, like, that is the new route to market. So if you rewind 10, 15 years, the route to market for emerging brands used to be go through a couple of specialty retailers. You know, maybe you're in the natural channel or something like that. And then hopefully you kind of jump the shark or you jump the chasm and you move on to national
to a broker
retail.
Distributor.
Yes, exactly.
Start with the Midwest, like a playbook.
Yes.
But now it's online.
Yeah, now it's
3P Amazon.
Yes, exactly right. It's Amazon, it's social commerce, and like what TikTok Shop is doing for beauty and brands in that space is tremendous. And then also it's direct to consumer, so much direct to consumer. And we even just saw in our pitch slam that just happened yesterday at our conference that like 40% of some of these emerging brands' volume is going through direct to consumer or online only channels. And so the route to market has just changed tremendously. So our investments in omni are uniquely and differentially beneficial for emerging brands. Not just because we'll give you the read of what's happening in the marketplace, but specifically because we're getting to the product granularity that's necessary to effectively manage what's going on. What UPCs are selling, which competitors are entering, who's transacting, are you benchmarking appropriately relative to a competitive set that you need to be able to define? What are the trends in DTC and what are the trends that are happening on social commerce? All of these things are incredibly important and you need the granularity to do it. It's not enough just to know that e-com is growing. Yes, we know that. We're aware, right? You need to be able to manage it effectively. And that's also why we're investing in figuring out how to bring digital shelf solutions at an affordable and commercially viable mechanism to our emerging brand team so that they can actually not just see how their performance is, but also manage it effectively to grow on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis. So very exciting outcomes coming from the investments that we're making into this space to help emerging brands succeed in a totally new type of go-to-market model that's just become more and more prevalent over the course of the last couple of years.
For those of you listening on over here, can you refer to Pitch Slam? We actually covered that live from the C360 conference. For those of you curious about what it is, you can just Google it, type NIQ Pitch Slam, or you can go to LinkedIn and type just one word, Pitch Slam, with no spaces in them, and you'll find our posts on that. I was very excited for all of those that actually pitched, because what a big deal, and I'm going to ask you later what that means for the winner, which was pretty awesome, Jazzberry.
Yes.
And the other thing you referred to is the focus on digital, which is now there's a scorecard across the board for content, out of stock, as well as for measurement, which I think is pretty awesome. And what I'm hearing from you is small brands can access that level of detail as well.
We're in the process right now. By the time that you're hearing this, we'll probably have something that'll work just well for you to make sure that you have exactly what you need to manage your business effectively in this space.
Awesome. A reminder as well that last month we talked to Kim Cox, Kim Cox did speak to what the details are about what's reported out. And then separately, we did put a video out back in mid-May when we were at the conference that actually highlights the details specifically of the e-commerce coverage. So the Pitch Slam that we just referred to, right? It was a pleasure to see that live. It's the second year. How the heck did you conceive this? Because it's unique.
Yeah.
And while you're not alone in doing this, especially from an insights provider, it makes you pretty unique. How did you go about sourcing the finalists, and then what happens next to Jazzberry, the winner?
Yeah, I have to give full credit to Andrew Creasus, whose vision it was to bring this to life, and to Emily Parenti, who is the actual the muscle that made this all happen. She's our do-it-all marketer, and I'm so grateful to have both of them to bring this Pitch Slam concept to life. Countless others have contributed to it along the way, but those two have been the real leaders for us. And it came about because as you get deeper into the emerging brand space, you sort of realize that a Pitch Slam, there's a bunch of different organizations that have them, but they're a little bit of a rite of passage to prove your commitment to the industry, your commitment to the community. And so that's why we really wanted to do it, why we continue to do it, because it's an awesome way to, one, get exposure to a ton of different brands, but also start to demonstrate how data and information can be used in order to drive those brands to higher and higher heights. And so the way that we go through our process is, we start marketing and seeking submissions and applications several months ago throughout the process. And we partner really directly with a lot of community partners along the way. So we have really strong relationships with groups like Naturally Network, with Startup CPG, with Climate Collaborative.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, so many others. And so we work with them to source some of the best and brightest up and coming stars to apply to this Pitch Slam, where there's a really hardy prize, $550,000 of cash and prizes.
Oh wait, so there's actually money.
Yes.
And so the winner, in this case, Jazzberry this year, is actually going to get a prize that they can put into the business.
Correct. They're getting $50,000 of cash on top of roughly what amounts to $500,000 of services combined from both NIQ as well as some service provider partners that we have, like Crossmark, who are going to be offering them
who could actually help them get in store.
Exactly right. Right.
Okay, so Jazzberry, lucky guys.
Yes.
And obviously they earned it. So, I say lucky, but they've obviously earned it.
But it's not just Jazzberry, by the way. Like if you get into our top 20, you're getting access to our Bizer content and to our RMS data, and you're also getting access to Bases, who's going to help you evaluate whether your product is successful. So the point of this isn't just to pick a winner, though certainly we care about winner, and Jazzberry is an amazing brand, amazing product. We're so excited to have that team as our champion this year. But even the top 20 are getting benefit from the process, and the level of exposure that they're finding is really awesome.
How awesome is that? So if you're a small brand, you probably want to figure out how to get in touch with NIQ.
Please.
How you can make your way to the final Pitch Slam year. But speaking of Bases, now that you referred to them, I do want to mention, we also did vlog about the neuroscience behind a lot of what Bases is doing, both on the product side, the packaging side, the taste side, things of that nature, to help you launch innovation the right way first time around. So a reminder to audience, I'm speaking to Kenny Juskowiak, Managing Director for Emerging Brands at NielsenIQ. So with coverage and partnerships for smaller brands, pretty clear, the Pitch Slam effort to bring them into the network and then support them. What about the other side of the fence? For most of these guys, the desired outcome is private equity or is VC funding. Yeah. So how do you actually support those groups, which is private equity and VC? Are they partners with you guys? Do they use the data and insights and the services?
Absolutely. So a really large part of our strategy for emerging brands is to build deep relationships with the entire community of stakeholders that surround them, right? Emerging brands are highly dependent on retailers, investors, associations, networks, distributors, brokers, all of those, right? But I think almost, if you have to look at the two towering ones, it's retailers and investors become the primary stakeholders that they care so much about. And so it's really important for us to build deep relationships, partnerships, and create the currency of commerce that exists between how an emerging brand talks about itself and how an investor community is going to ask questions or evaluate what these brands look like. So I was very blessed a few weeks ago to be able to go to the Nutrition Capital Network Summit in New York. And NCN is they're a community that brings together investors and emerging brands so that they can start to facilitate connections. I was there speaking about the future of retail, but through that process, I got to see Nick McCoy from Whitstitch Capital do this awesome presentation about how he thinks about evaluating brands and what he's looking for from a data standpoint to say, like, is a brand successful or not? He talked about penetration, buy rate trends, loyalty, things like that, on top of the retail performance metrics that we might be a little bit more familiar with. And so it was really interesting to have this dialogue to see how data plays a role in how emerging brands should be talking to about their performance to savvy investors, and how investors should be using this data to evaluate and identify potential investment targets. And so we're in the process right now of discovering what kinds of solutions we can put into place that are going to keep like knitting those communities together more closely, because we think that there's a lot of opportunity there for everyone, and everybody benefits when good connections are made throughout the process.
Oh, no debate in my head whatsoever. I forgot to mention when we talked about the Pitch Slam, you'll actually have Mr. Wonderful be a judge.
Yes.
That guy he's always funny. Number one, he's always funny.
Yes.
But his presentation was also pretty awesome yesterday.
It was.
And for those of you who are founders, early stage companies, startup brands listening and watching this episode, he actually gave 3 distinct points how he measures startup brands pitching and on the Shark Tank, but I think that advice is valuable for
sure
anybody and everybody. So we actually put out what those 3 pieces of advice were when he presented on main stage at C360. I'd advise anybody go back, search for Kevin O'Leary Shark Tank connected with NIQ C360 in the same search term, and you're going to find those 3 pieces of advice.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He was excellent, and I think he had some really awesome advice. So anybody that can see any and all of that, it's a worthwhile listen for sure.
1000%. So now let's go to very early stage.
Sure.
I'm a startup founder.
Yeah.
I don't have VC backing. I don't have private equity.
Mm-hmm.
I've got like $500,000, $1 million of sales, but I'm starting to see velocity. Mm-hmm. And I now need data. I need measurement. I need insights.
Yeah.
All of the stuff you guys offer, which is a shopper journey we discussed earlier, and then trying to understand how good quality of your product, the basic stuff, things of that nature. Do you support them?
Absolutely. Unequivocally and absolutely. And we're looking to support them even more. So we're exploring lots of different avenues to give them even more support than they have right now, but a few that we already have baked in. So our Buyer solution is designed to take you from challenger to champion, but almost everywhere from pre-sale, like pre-revenue all the way through.
Wow, that's a big one, Kenny. So pre-revenue.
Yes. We can help you if you need to understand how to enter a category, or if you need to understand things like what price points you should be coming in at, or what the competitive landscape looks like, or things like that. Those are all things that need to happen. How do you get your packaging right before you launch? Because your packaging is your most important marketing vehicle, especially if you're going into retail, right?
Wait, can you only get this right?
Yeah.
So if the Rajas, we end up starting a beauty and skincare brand, we can come to NIQ and we can lean on you guys to give us some basic advice.
Absolutely.
How to enter the market, what competition looks like, where we've got a best shot, price point.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be looking forward to that at some point.
I'm looking forward to what the skincare brand's going to be. I think it's
coming, man. It's coming.
Yeah,
so I
the
don't
answer
want to
is
give away the
TikTok
plot.
shop. Launch.
There's no debate in my head. TikTok is here to stay.
Yes.
All this noise we have on banning, things of that nature. Personally feel the privacy issues, Facebook has the same ones.
Yeah.
And it's existed over a decade at this point.
I think also the reality is, even if it's not, I think you're right. So I agree with you fully, but even if it's not TikTok, it's going to be somebody else, right? Like the medium is not going away.
Here's an interesting observation, right? This is very important for small brands.
Yeah.
India, 1.5 billion people has banned TikTok. Mm-hmm. So you can't really use TikTok in India. So if you refresh your feed, you'll just get no feed.
Yeah.
But people use VPN, and guess where the largest user base of TikTok is? It's not China, it's India.
Oh, really?
So it's
my gosh.
So they're just using VPN. So it's kind of, in some ways it's silly, in some ways, I guess it's necessary to put a stake in the ground. So back to small brands, right? So if I heard this right, you guys support the absolute startup brands who are still in the no revenue stage, kind of strategic.
Yep.
Hey, here's how you can enter. here's what you expect from competition.
Yes.
Retail may be far off in the future.
Yes.
Get started with doing the right things like TikTok Shop, and then maybe even a social strategy of some sort, some basic advice.
Yeah, I think we can give advice. I'd say we're going to be, like you're going to know your categories,
obviously,
and your business very specifically a little bit more. But I think what we also do is we work really seamlessly with a lot of other industry partners. So like accelerator programs and things like that exist, across the whole landscape. And this goes back to that ecosystem strategy that I was kind of talking about before. I don't want to just be the singular and sole provider of insights for anybody. That's going to be unrealistic for us to deliver on all of that. And it's also going to be that might be a shifted point of view that brands don't need. They need a well-rounded perspective.
Some.
Yes.
But I don't want to dismiss the fact that NIQ is a behemoth in the industry. Mm-hmm. That 2 words of advice from NIQ is worth 1,000 words from some others in the 360 ecosystem.
I think that's true a lot of the times, yes. But I also know that there's a lot of really good advice that comes from so many other places. And what we want to do is just make sure that all of that advice is getting smarter. So how do we use our insights and our data to raise the whole, raise the tide for the whole industry? And work with awesome groups like Beyond Brands, who's doing, these accelerator programs along the way to help early stage brands to succeed. How do we partner with them effectively to bring our data to life for these emerging brands?
So when the time comes, the Rogers will certainly ping you.
I would love to hear it from you.
NIQ, of course, is a whole offering, like we spoke earlier on. Consumer insights, panel data, shopper journeys, the basic stuff that actually helps a brand understand whether the taste is good, packaging, etc., which is a thorough understanding of the shopping experience. Can the small brands leverage this same capability?
Absolutely. And actually, NIQ is making a really significant investment to make that accessible for emerging brands just this year. There's been historically 2 reasons why consumer data has been hard for emerging brands to really leverage and get full value from. The first is that they're emerging brands. They're small, they're in narrow places, they're more niche, and consumer data is usually panel data, right? So it's a sample of consumers. And even if you have a really huge sample, sometimes you're still just not going to have a lot of sample size. NIQ has invested in more than doubling our sample size by the end of this year. So with that level of sample size, we're going to have unprecedented depth of measurement and samples to see what's going on actually
accuracy
with these.
Yes,
exactly. Accuracy will be off the charts, but so too will the visibility to brands that have historically been wrapped into that dreaded all other category, right? And so as we get more and more depth and visibility to what's going on with these emerging brands, the value for it will start to increase for these smaller guys. On top of that, though, there was also this kind of complexity problem, right? That panel data just is even a little bit more sophisticated than your core kind of RMS sales share data. And people feel a little bit intimidated by that. And so we've invested a lot, too, there in our panel on demand solutions, in bringing panel solutions not just more accurately and more quickly, like tremendously more quickly, directly into our Discover platforms, but also in making sure that the use and application of that is hyper intuitive so that you can see that data integrated into stories that are answering specific use cases and specific good business questions. But it also makes it really easy to get exactly what you want out of the system without having to query in a ton of different ways or get a PhD in running panel data. So very exciting transformations on both fronts that are going to make panel much more valuable for our emerging brands in the future than they have ever been in the past.
So that's awesome to hear, but what about item and product coding?
Oh yeah, thank you so much for the reminder, because it is I did the thing that I said we always do, which is overlook item and product coding, but it's such an important part of what makes for
it's like the reason
quality.
I ask is having spent 30 years in the largest of brands in the world, PepsiCo, J&J, General Mills, it's something I've taken for granted, but it's a big deal for accuracy.
Absolutely it is. It's really hard to understand what's going on in the marketplace if you don't have visibility to the items that are out there. So it's not just about getting sample. I can have sample of a UPC that has no coding associated with it and nobody understands exactly what's going on. And so we have made a lot of strategic investments as well to have the deepest and most granular coding within our panel data sets to make sure that we can give actual visibility to the true trends that are emerging for brands and for characteristics and for just consumer behavior overall. So it's not the sexiest part of the job, but it is such an incredible foundation to making sure that the data is both useful and accurate so that you're oriented in the right direction.
So Kenny, here on the CPG Guys, the last question is always called fast forward.
Yes.
Where we ask you to pull out a crystal ball and tell us this crazy, cray 4 years we've seen of things moving from being in-store centric to being very digitally centric. In fact, for those of us that actually attended C360, we heard Mr. Wonderful talk to us about how in Florida, his own experience, grandmas, grandpas, now ordering from an app.
Yeah.
They don't want to go back in store.
Yeah.
So with that backdrop, are you all ready for this mega shift in consumer trends, and how does that impact how you support small and emerging brands?
Yeah. I think anybody who tells you that they are ready hasn't learned the lessons of the past, that like you never know what shocks are going to come your way. And look at what TikTok has become in just like 7 short months. That said, I think that the future is exciting and that we are staying on top of everything that we know of and can see and can imagine going forward. So I'm very excited for what the future has to offer. I'm especially excited for what it means for emerging brands. There's a lot of people who look at this space and say, oh my gosh, that level of complexity, how is an emerging brand ever going to compete? The reality is that I actually think it's massively advantageous for emerging brands to compete now in this new universe. There's a lot of these big companies that now have to protect so much of their volume, and they're protecting it in a set of channels and venues that are becoming more and more fragmented. And so it's harder and harder and harder to compete effectively in all of these places. An emerging brand isn't protecting anything. All they're trying to do is grow. And so they get to pick where they want to grow. They can pick which channel they want to enter into, the one that fits them best, the one that fits their consumer best. And then they can choose to compete within that space really, really effectively. And by competing in just that one area, they can win. And that's what we've seen over the course of the last few years, is that these emerging brands know their consumer extraordinarily well, are willing to compete in spaces that otherwise seem like are not large enough to warrant the attention of a big strategic, and are oftentimes willing to make a little bit less money than the big strategics are willing to as well. And through all of that, they're sort of carving out niches that slowly eat away at the foundation of these big strategics. I don't see that trend going away. I think the proliferation of new channels, new technologies, new ways of buying is only going to make that exercise more beneficial for emerging brands, or at least those who are able to take advantage of it.
You know, the ability to do digital disruption is also 100x, right?
Oh, so
that
much.
But what about the big word that we spent kind of half a day learning and understanding and decomposing artificial intelligence?
Yes.
AI definitely is going to pose a challenge for bigger brands, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas it's going to be a best friend for younger brands.
I think it's absolutely going to be a best friend for emerging brands. And the reason is similar to what I was just saying. Like, big brands have had resource and time before. They've had people and they've had weeks of time to answer big strategic questions. So processes or whatever else it was, they were able to fill the gap that and get the right decisions made, even if it took a little bit of time or a little bit of extra money. Emerging brands never had that luxury. They never had people. They've never had weeks of time. They never had those resources. And so they've just made less efficient decisions, right? They've made less intelligent decisions for lack of the right inputs. Now, AI is going to be a playing field leveler. The biggest brands are going to find benefit in efficiency, which is going to be awesome. Maybe they're going to make some smarter decisions along the way. But emerging brands, it's going to be like turning on a light when you were in a dark room before. Things that you had no visibility to and no way and means to get visibility to, you're now going to be able to see with just the type of a few buttons, asking whomever what the right answer is for the problem that you're trying to solve. It'll be transformative, and you're just going to see better decision-making flood into emerging brand spaces in a way that it has never before. So I'm really excited to see that tide rise over the course of the next few years.
It's kind of like the intelligence gap is going to close.
Correct. Yeah.
How awesome is that? I'm looking forward to that, certainly. You know, when we invited you to join the show, we knew what we were going to get. We got exactly what we were anticipating. What an awesome conversation. So let me remind the audience that you can find all of our content by simply going to a web browser and typing cpgguys.com as the URL And if you think you or your company has some thought leadership to contribute to a community discussion, simply drop us an email at contact@cpgguys.com. Again, that's contact@cpgguys.com, and you can join us on the podcast. Don't forget to drop us a rating at cpgguys.com on the navigation bar up top. Why this is important is because you shape the show. You tell us who the guest should be and what topics we should be discussing. Thank you to the 31,000 plus followers we have on LinkedIn. We know that's a big number. The show doesn't exist without you. From the bottom of our heart, thank you. Kenny, thanks for making time on a busy conference. I'm sure your clients are here wanting to talk to you, so thank you for making time and joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
That's a wrap of this episode. We will see you soon on another episode of the CPG Guys.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.